Well, good evening, everyone. The Lord bless, and thank you so much for coming on to be a part of tonight's 50 lessons that ministry has taught me encounter. We're going to deal with lesson 13 and 14, respectively, tonight. This is going to be a great release. God bless all of you, and thank you so much. And as our custom has been, and even through the posted comment, if you could like the broadcast and share it, we do appreciate you helping us to spread the word and just really to reach a greater audience consistent with what we're doing as it relates to ministry, all things ministry, to encourage, to equip, to bless, to empower, to activate, to stir, to provoke, just to raise up a people who will simply live emphatically righteous for Christ. And so I got some good stuff I'm going to be sharing with you. Two lessons we're going to cover from the small booklet, 50 Lessons Ministry Has Taught Me, lesson number 13. There are different times and seasons to life. You can't always live in the mountains because the valleys are part of your calling as well. Navigate the time zones and seasons of life requires wisdom and humility. There's a grace available to live in Christ in any time zone or season of life. Purpose to be properly configured when times and seasons demand so. Oftentimes in my encounters with emerging and younger ministry gifts, there's a tendency to feel as if their tenure of ministry will be summertime only. For the most part, if you have a climate that's consistent with the changing of seasons, there's always a welcoming when the summer months come in because you get sunshine, you get the heat, you get the warmth from the sun rays, of course. The trees begin to bud, the grass turns green, the birds start chirping, and a lot of outdoor festives can take place. Living in the Midwest, where I am in the Chicagoland area, sometimes our winters can be extremely brutal as it relates to just cold, where there have been times when we've had extended periods of cold where the temperatures would plummet below zero, and then the wind chill factors would have the temperatures feeling like it's 20 minus 20 outside, and no one really wants to be bothered with that kind of stuff. But for us Midwesterners, we have become, I won't say used to it, but acquainted with it, and we just kind of hunker down in anticipation of the spring months coming, and when we get a reprieve during the course of the winter, of course, we're extremely excited. But there are various time zones and seasons to life, and every functional ministry gift, every how can I say this? Every impactful leader, albeit the sacred or secular realms, must embrace the various seasons that come with leading. Some, of course, representing you're on the upside, and then you have, the winter months where things are barren, things may not be growing, but because you lead and you lead well, you navigate the seasons of your life, and you can also experience God's goodness regardless of what the season may be. And so there are different times and seasons to life. Solomon tells us in Ecclesiastes 3 that there's a time and season for everything. And it's very, very important for us to really begin to embrace the fullness of God in a greater way when it comes down to life. It's almost like naturally per se when it comes to parenting. There are different time zones and seasons to parenting. And years ago, my wife and I wrote a transitional paper called Parenting 4.0, and we dealt with the four stages of parenting. The initial role of any newly minted parent as your first child is born, and the continuation of how many children you may have. You're going to have four seasons with those children. The first season is going to be complete caretaker. The child relies on you for every single thing. They can't necessarily do anything for themselves. And oftentimes the inception of this new life in Christ, there's a heavy reliance on Christ where we really trust him. We got that childlike faith and we need him for everything. And then the second season is that of a corrector. As that child begins to grow, then you start deploying corrective measures to protect the child, but also to help the child discern and become aware of boundaries and things that are safe for them, things that are not safe for them. And sometimes in ministry is like that. It's almost like as you grow in grace, you get to a season in life where there's a strong time of being corrected because God has a tailor-made plan for you. And apart from correction, you can get involved in things that could be to your detriment in the days to come. And then there's another season to parenting where you coach. By the time that child hits the tender age of 8, maybe 9, they start exploring with various things that interest them. And if you're a skillful parent, you try to expose them to as much as you can to kind of whet their appetites concerning different things that make it palatable for them. And then they'll find their niche. And then you go through that coaching stage well into their high school years. And by the time that sophomore, junior year, but definitely the senior year, the role begins to change again, and you become more of a consultant because they built their own circuit of friendships. They could be employed, they're planning to go to college. A lot of things could be going on with them outside of the home. They don't need your immediate care. They've learned the disciplines you've taught them. They understand boundaries, and they're respectful individuals. And you've coached them to a certain degree, and they've kind of found their niche, and they'll come back with you and maybe every now and then to get some wisdom, to get some advice from you, and then they'll move forward. And so sometimes in ministry, we don't make the adjustments, or just in life in general, with the different seasons that we're in. And we could, in fact, become a tool to really stunt the growth of those connected to us, or we stunt our own growth. And so discerning the times and the seasons are very, very important. And so my question to you, what season are you in? Are you in summer? Is it perhaps fall? Are you in winter, or is it spring for you? Are things coming alive, new things that are being transacted with you? And so it's very important to discern the time and the season that you're in so you can make the necessary adjustments and be that formidable gift that God has ordained you to be to those he's called you to. Lesson number 14, don't lower your standards for anyone. My wife has constantly stated, I honor people more than they do me. This, now I realize that what I'm giving you is a synopsis of 20 years of ministry and some seasons and time zones and episodes that I have weathered, endured, and in fact matured beyond. And so, but this was a season of life where we encountered people, and your heart is committed to develop, to equip people, but that doesn't mean that everyone shares the same sentiments. And so, what I wrote once again was, don't lower your standards for anyone. My wife has constantly stated, I honor people more than they do me. She hates to see me go through times of betrayal and broken covenants. However, this comes with the territory of leadership. I've come to realize that some just don't know how to do things we feel they should know how to do. That's why we should never lower our standards. The example you choose to remain could be the means of others rising to a higher level. But what we have learned over the years when it comes to vetting relationships is that there are some things that we look for. We don't lower our standard. We don't dumb it down. We state emphatically who we are and what we're about when it comes to relationships. But here's some things I want to give you that functional relationships require when it comes to building a rapport with others. Number one, discernment, capacity to make clear distinctions concerning who belongs in your life and what type of access you should grant them. Now, albeit there'll be times when God may challenge you really to give access to a person who is not going to do what you may deem to be honorable, or what you know is necessary, or perhaps what God is really trying to do for them in that relationship. But we've still got to be willing to partner with Christ, because sometimes it's him extending mercy to people who are on a course with self-destruction. That's why you don't lower your standard. You hear from God, and then you discern where does this person belong in my life, and then what type of access, if any, should I grant them? Is it a temporary relationship? Is it a seasonal relationship? When this season of us being in this same space is over, then the relationship also will not carry the level of connectivity it has. Or is it a destiny relationship? And you've got to be able to discern that. Number two, is there mutual honor? Honor is necessary for administering the proper type of esteem and overall placement of the relationship. You honor them, but do they honor you? These are things that we've learned about vetting relationships. Number three, value. A clear and concise revelation of how meaningful this person is to you. This will most certainly determine your investment into the relationship. This is so important. So, and then people also need to be able to value you. And one way you can find it out is simply by asking simple question is not, do you value me or do you honor me? But as you build a rapport and you start relating with them, and then you can hear the language that flows out of them, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. If the communication is minimal at best, if you're the one always initiating it, if you're the one always seeking for the connectivity to take place, then there's no mutual value that's coming, because what people value, they pursue. I'll say that again. What people value, they pursue, and who people value, they pursue. This is why some individuals will go and invest astronomical amounts of money that some may deem to be borderline whatever, but they may value a specific entertainer. So if the entertainer is saying, listen, these tickets are going for $1,000 or $1,500, they have no problem getting those tickets because they value that entertainer. And sometimes in spiritual relationships and in ministry, we fail to realize that we oftentimes will invest in who and what we value. So there must be mutual value. And then commitment. It's got to be mutual commitment. Commitments will empower your parameters that will help you supply the maintenance needed for the endurance of the relationship. And oftentimes, when there's a lack of word of commitment, there is no supply for the sake of maintenance to make sure the relationship is maintained. You know, we've had people in our lives that we love, we poured into, and for whatever the reason may be, they're no longer in our lives. And some have made exits that were questionable and just flat out dishonorable and indifferent. And their behavior does not give us a license to do anything different. Of course, you got to readjust the boundaries. You got to modify or perhaps just cut off any sense of interaction, because it's important for your safety, your welfare, your health, and your well-being as well. Because anytime there's dishonor, there's obviously an issue with humility, because the Bible makes it clear that before honor, there is humility. And in the moment there's no mutual exchange of honor, obviously the demon spirit of pride has gotten there. When there's no value, there could be a sense of just indifference in an individual's heart. They may lack the capacity, or they could be manipulative, seductive, whatever the case may be, that prohibits them from being so. And then commitment. When people really commit, they will cut covenant. When they commit, they will cut covenant, or cutting covenant is a sign of commitment. There's a mutual exchange that can take place. And then the last thing is contributions, where there's a track record of deposit made to substantiate the relationship. No relationship can survive when there are mutual contributions being made. I don't care how it may be. You say, well, how can a person invest in an entertainer? Well, the entertainer provides good entertainment, and then the person who is tuned into that entertainer invests in that entertainer's life. That's simply just the way it works. And in the context of relationships where there's proximity that's granted and closeness is a part of it, there will be contributions. People will do things for you, just like you do things for people spontaneously. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about relationships in ministry. That's just the nature of it. And when it comes down to being functional in leading, being functional and standing as an example, when it comes down to being functional as a model, it's important that you don't lower your standards for anyone. And if people are not coming up to the standards that you've set, there are others who will meet those standards above and beyond. Do not dumb down yourself for anyone. Do not lower your standards for anyone. Know your worth and know your value. And most importantly, stay humble before God and allow Him to deal with your heart when it comes down to dealing with people. But I'll recap these things very quickly. 5 things needed for functional relationships. Number 1, discernment. You've got to distinguish why people are in your life. And then you've got to also discern what capacity or access should be given to them as relates to how close they get to you. And then honor. There must be mutual honor. Then value, mutual commitment, and mutual contributions. I trust that these 2 lessons have blessed you. This is our simple seed for 20 years of ministry. We'll be celebrating the weekend of August the 19th and 20th, 20 years of ministry, 28 years of marriage this August. And so a lot of great things happening for us. And saints, we've launched an online giving campaign for River Chicago. In the background, you can see just a mock-up design for the exterior of this state-of-the-art house of prayer that we're building on the west side of Chicago. Your partnership is needed, and it would be greatly appreciated. I'm going to share just a quick video in the next couple of days to encourage partnership and investment into what we're doing. We need several hundred of you to sow a one-time seed for this phase of our giving campaign, a $100 seed, several hundred of you for this phase in particular. This is so that we can, as we move into the fall months, we can get the ground broken. And then by in late spring, early summer of 2024, we can have that structure up. It's by faith, and we're believing God to make it happen for us. The partnership is a powerful key that can really help bring acceleration to this. And I will be sharing more with you in the days to come. So great grace. We appreciate all of you. Have a phenomenal evening, and we will see you again tomorrow for another lesson from the booklet, 50 Lessons That Ministry Has Taught Me. God bless, and we'll see you again soon.